Okay, so nice. Welcome everyone to the 2024 annual meeting for the BC Association of Building Designers. It's exciting to see the things that we've accomplished over the last 4 years. As an association, we've seen our membership grow, and we've accomplished a lot in the way of preserving the rights for designers, as well as enhancing building design as a profession, and also working for the rights of our interior designer members. So the agenda for this morning, just to go through our points. First of all, we're going to review the ongoing objectives for our association. Second, we're going to review the designer certification procedure with ASTTBC. Third, we're going to give you an overview of the government housing programs and their impact on designers. This is one of the things I've had a lot of emails and questions about over the last couple of months, so we'll review that. 4, we're going to take a moment to acknowledge our corporate sponsors and our corporate partners that are helping us out. Then we're going to talk about the new membership tiers that we've put in place, as well as the dues that would apply to some of those tiers. And then lastly, we will have the use of our BCABD logo, and as well, we're going to discuss membership certificates. So those will be the points for agenda as we go through the presentation, and then at the end, the question and answer period. So we'll get into our presentation here with, just move all my Zoom windows around. Okay, so we have, first of all, what is the objectives for the BC Association of Building Designers? First of all, our mission is to protect the interests of the public by raising the standards for professionalism and ethics in building design community. And we're going to do that through education, network, and organization. What does that mean? Well, as professionals, we have to make sure that we're not just looking after our own interests, but we want to make sure that what we're doing as professionals is in the benefit of our communities and the people that we serve. This is very important for us as an association, and it's very important for the government and other associations in recognizing our legitimacy, that we take seriously the interests of the public in what we're doing. Secondly, our goal is to see the rights of professionals to practice building design protected. So this applies to building designers as well as to those working in interior designing, and as well as those that might be doing urban planning out these types of developments, but not doing the actual architectural drawings. We have had great success over the last few years in making sure that building designers have been able to design without losing rights, and we're looking for ways to get more flexibility for building designers and interior designers and what they can do. The third thing that we are focused on is we're striving to create a better communication in the building design community, not just with our own members, but with building officials, government officials, educators, other professionals like engineers and architects, suppliers, contractors, and homeowners. And we've created actually a very good network of these different groups. And some of these connections we've made have been very beneficial to us and will continue to be beneficial as we go forward. And fourth, our aim is to enhance the ethics in the building design community to better serve our clients and to respect others in the construction community. So this deals with situations, for example, copyrights situations where someone comes to you with plans belonging to another designer and asks you to make changes. We're aiming to raise the ethics so that we respect each other's rights to copyright, so that we consult with each other when these types of situations arise. And then that protects us as well as our clients from copyright infringement suits. Also, we're looking at encouraging things like liability and errors and emissions insurance and things like that to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and our clients from any problems. So how are we raising the standards through education, networking, and education? So the education, if you haven't checked it lately, check our upcoming events tab on our website. There's where we feature any of our upcoming educational opportunities. If you took some time right now to look there, you would see at the top of our upcoming events, the BOABC, the Building Officials Association of BC, they have their online, on-demand building code update course available. And if you go through our upcoming events tab, you'll notice at the top, there is a tab to register for the event. If you click on register for the event through our website, it takes you to the option to register as a non-BOABC member. And then we're recommending for that one that you take the building only course, which includes energy and building, but not plumbing. The building only course, it's $325, and it will bring you up to speed with all of the changes with the building code that's going to be put into place in just a few weeks. The course is really well done. It's an on-demand course online, so you can do it at your own speed, and you don't have to travel anywhere. You can do it right from your own office or home. Other courses that we have on there, BCIT has just released their April to August, what they call micro-credentials, flexible learning micro-credentials. They're working with the government, and we've talked to them about some of our needs as an association. They're working with the government to allow people to upgrade their training through micro-credentials and work towards certification with ASTTBC, or even with the engineers, through achieving micro credentials one at a time. And so these are online, on-demand courses that are excellent. There's ones on architecture, engineering, energy science, passive house, many different courses that are available. And if you go on our website right now, we have the link to those events those courses you might want to take. In particular, there's the two building code courses. There's the single family dwelling building code course, which is BLDG 1500. That course is the one that is required by ASTTBC for registration. And then there is also the Part 9 small building and multifamily course, which deals more with multiple unit buildings like townhouses, small commercial buildings. So those courses are available. I will say this about any of the BCIT courses, like the building code courses, they book up very quickly. So if you are wanting to take those courses, I would recommend as soon as our meeting is over that you go check out what's available, especially the building code ones. They usually are booked up within a week of release. We just found out about these courses yesterday. Okay, also we are working on customized educational presentations with different groups. So Cascadia Windows and Doors, for example, you'll notice in our upcoming events, they're putting together a customized presentation for our members dealing with fenestration, as well as the code changes involving windows and doors. So more organizations and associations are interested in tailoring their presentations to us. We're in discussions with some other groups right now to make sure that they, or to help them formulate programs for our members, and we'll be keeping all these on our upcoming events. So education is very important. At the moment, we're not requiring CPD points for professional development. That might be something we put into practice in the future, but education and continuing to up our game is vital. We're also talking with some of the other universities and colleges and trade schools about tailoring courses directly for our members. University of Vancouver Island, for example, is interested in putting together introductory course for those that want to learn more about interpreting zoning bylaws and understanding official community plans. So there will be courses for every level of our membership, ones that are just starting as ones that are more advanced. So education is important for us as an organization. We also are working at becoming more organized as an actual society. We finished our society registration recently, and so we are that is official now, that the BC Association of Building Designers is a registered body. We had our meeting of our board of directors last month, and we set terms for the length of the directors. So each board of directors member will have a 2-year term. We're staggering those terms. So right now, a few of our members will have just 1 year and their term will end next March, which will allow new members to come in, and we'll have a 50-50 turnover of our 10 board of director members. We held our election for our president, vice president, and some of our other positions. So this year I will be acting as the president of the association. Peter Jorgensen is our vice president. John Larson is our treasurer, and Theo Mushamansky is our secretary. So those are our 4 positions there. And our other board members at present are Pam Chilton, Mike Giroux, Nick Petrie, Bob Miller, Joe Rommel, and Austin Werner. These are the same board of directors that we've had since our inception 4 years ago and are really the founding members of the association. But starting next March, we will be looking to replace and bring in new members to get a different perspective and take on things. So my term actually as a board of director ends next March at our election. Whether I choose to run again or not, we'll see. But we will have an opening for new board members. And at that time, the board members, once they're elected, will elect the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. Okay, that is what's happening with our organization. Elections are set for March 2025, and you will be given adequate notice if you want to run as a board member, and you will be given adequate notice of the election coming up. And we will get into later our tiers of membership, but not all members will be voting members. Only some of our members will have that voting power, so you'll want to pay attention to that as we go along. Okay. I might be talking fast because there's quite a bit to go through here. So then we get into the rights of designers and the right for us to practice. So that was really why our association was formed in the beginning, was to defend our rights with the change of the architects regulation that was coming in. So now the architects regulation is in effect. The terms of it are set for the moment. It continues to dictate who can design what. So I would recommend all of our members visit our website at some point, take an hour or two and look at the tab architects regulation, read that page, and also download the architects regulation, which is available through that page, and read through the architects regulations so that you understand what limits you have presently as a building designer. I often get questions from our members, can I do this and can I do that? And we're happy to answer those questions, but really it's something that we should be experts on. Now, if you're reading it and you don't understand and need some interpretation, feel free to reach out, but take some time to really get to know that regulation because it impacts what you do every day. Aside from what was carried over from the Architects Act, the Architects Regulation actually now opens up the ability for building designers and interior designers to alter Part 9 and Part 3 buildings that can only be designed by an architect. So for example, you can now, as an interior designer, without the requirement to have an architect, work on a restaurant. As long as you don't change any exit doors or put up any barriers like walls or create new rooms, you are allowed without the requirement to have an architect involved to do those types of modifications. And the same applies to any space within a building. A building designer or an interior designer can modify a commercial building that's beyond the size that they're allowed to do, as long as they aren't adding rooms or changing exiting patterns. So there is some things that were not allowed before that are allowed now. One of the main things that we're running into right now as a problem is the number of dwelling units that we can design without an architect. Presently, you can design a residential building with up to 4 dwelling units. Under the building code, secondary suites are considered a dwelling unit. So if you have a duplex with suites, that's 4 units. If you have a triplex with suites, that's 6 units. So it's beyond what we're allowed to do. We have a request right in with the Premier's office and the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Post-Secondary Education, who oversee this realm. We have a request in to see if we can change that in light of the current legislation, because at least for us to be able to do 6 units would be more consistent with what they're doing with infill lots. But really, when we were going through the debates with the architects a couple of years ago, they had agreed that we could have more than 4 units, at least in townhouse configuration. And it was also agreed that secondary suites would not be considered dwelling units, but that in the final draft was removed. And so we're going to go after that. It's a bit of a process, but the nice thing about the new architects regulation is if we can convince the government to make that change in the interest of the public, they don't have to go before the Legislative Assembly. They can change it, and it could happen literally within a few days. So we feel confident that if this is going to happen, now is the time. Someone asked a question there. I will answer this. If you are designing a building with more than 4 units, the question is, can an architect review it? Under the architect's regulations, they have to design the building from the beginning. So legally, they're not allowed to sign off on any project a building designer or an interior designer does, unless it's their project from the beginning, designed in their offices. So you may have an architect that will do that for you. Technically, they're breaking their own regulations, and they could leave you and them open to serious fines from the Architects Institute. So be very careful with that. But what you can do is you can do more than 1 building per lot. So for example, if you're doing a townhouse development and you separate your buildings by 8 feet, so you have your 1.2 meter spatial separation for each building, you can do 2 townhouses or 3 townhouses or 20 townhouses on 1 PID, 1 lot, as long as they're separated into 4 unit or less buildings. So, so there's a lot of questions on this. We're going to talk about this after, because if I could go on and on about all of the in workings of multifamily, but we'll come back to that in the question and answer portion. Keep throwing your questions in there though. Networking. So we're also focused on networking, which has been this last year, really, if we had a theme to what we did as an association, our theme would be networking. We've made some really good contacts, and we've created a situation where people now are reaching out to the BC Association of Building Designers to be part of programs or to present to their members. In just a couple of weeks, I'll be doing a presentation to the PIBC, which is the Planning Institute of BC. We've done presentations to the Building Officials Association. Small Housing BC is another association that has asked if they can advocate for us to the government so that we can do more than 4 units. So we've made some really good connections here, aside from the ones we already had, Canadian Home Builders Association and others. There's also the Technology Professionals of British Columbia. That's a new association that oversees technologists in the province. So you might check out their website, Technology Professionals of BC. There's another group. Networking also with universities, colleges, and trade schools. We've been meeting with the administrators for engineering, architectural, and planning programs so that we can get in early to help people to understand the important role of building designers and to tailor their courses so that it adds legitimacy to the diplomas when they come out. Ultimately, what we would like to see is people be able to attend these courses, like from BCIT on their building science and architectural and engineering courses, to be able to come out with their diploma and have the government recognize that, or the equivalent through work experience over your period of working. recognize that as qualified enough to design a Part 9 building without an architect. That's what we're really pushing towards. And so we've made so many good connections. This year has been the year of connections. One of the big things that we do, which has been so good for us, is the Building Officials Association annual meeting and trade show. So the last 3 years, we've sponsored their annual meeting. Last year, we split it. We did less of a sponsorship, but we went into the trade show, and we made very good connections with building officials across the province. And actually, quite a few building officials have joined our association as affiliate members. And that has led to good communication between our two groups. And so we're doing that again this year in May. We will be sponsoring the Building Officials Association meeting in Richmond, as well as we'll have our trade booth there, and where we can present and make further contacts. But at those programs, we don't just make contacts with the building officials. We've made contacts with other groups within the government and within the industry that have been very, very beneficial to us. A lot of it's just adding legitimacy and letting people know we exist. That's one of the big messages we get back, is we've been trying to reach out to building designers and interior designers, but we don't have a way to reach them as a group. So they're really happy they can do that now. The other thing that we've been focusing on as a association is, I just got to check my time here. Yeah, is respect and cooperation. So one of the presentations that we've done to the building officials and to other groups is called a team approach to meeting the challenges of design and construction. And the essence of what we're trying to do is to get these different organizations to be more on board with, when problems arise, to attack those problems as a team. So what has happened traditionally in the past is a building designer will come in to get permits, they'll present their permits, there will be some sort of issue. And rather than working together to find a solution, or the builder makes some changes something on site and now there's an issue, rather than working for a solution, what has happened is stop work orders have been put in place. People have been sent away from the counter and come back when you have this fixed. So we're trying to work with the different groups to say, what can we do when these types of things happen to work together to find a solution, so we can, as efficiently as possible, without a work stoppage, get this project moving forward. And then that way we can get houses actually being built. This theme has been so well received. And I think it's a theme that our members need to understand too. When you have problems, get rid of the aggressive approach that sometimes you might have. Get rid of the negative feelings you might have towards the building officials and try to work with them as a team. Because honestly, you'll be working with many of these officials for decades. If you're just starting your career, it could be many decades. And so get to be on the same team with them. And then that way you'll create less stress for yourself. Things will be more efficient and it'll create less stress for them. Then people will look forward to seeing your plans coming across their table, because they know that you're someone that works with them. And that applies also to the planners as we work through the new legislation. Work with them, have good communication with them. So we've done this respect and cooperation through these presentations we've had with them, but we're also participating in a lot of the different things that are taking place, and we'll get into that coming up. But a lot of these new government incentives, we have been involved in every committee that has formed the framework for the changes in zoning, building codes, and things like that. So it's been really exciting how we are being acknowledged as a legitimate group of people, the designers in the province. Let's just take for a moment to look at the ASTTBC certifications again, because ultimately this is something that we would like to see in the province, is certification become a requirement for at least building designers to have additional rights. If we're going to be pushing to get all of Part 9, we need to show them why do we think we're qualified. So ASTTBC is a powerful tool for us and our members that want to do more than just single family homes and duplexes and small buildings, if they want to get deeper into Part 9, we believe that that's the avenue that the government is going to respect for giving us more rights. So ASTTBC has their certification or registration for applied science technologists, as well as certified technicians. You can be a certified technician, which takes less for registration as that. And once you become a certified technician, you can then register as a technical specialist as either a certified residential designer or a registered building designer. Certified residential designers are recognized by ASTT as competent to be able to design single family homes and duplexes. Registered building designers are recognized as being competent to do small multifamily buildings and small commercial buildings. This is right now, ASTT is rewriting their framework. And so some of these things may adjust, whether there's a distinction between CRDs and RBDs moving forward, we'll see. But as it stands, this is the way it looks. I was talking with ASTT BC a couple of weeks ago, and the comment was made that if anyone is considering registration with ASTT BC, it will be much easier before the new bylaws are put into place. So if you've been thinking of doing this and you haven't got around to it, get the process started, because once the new bylaws are put in place, the difficulty to get registered is going to go up. It's not going to be impossible. It's just going to be, there's more hoops to go through. But we feel confident that the majority of our members, based on either your education, your work experience, or a combination of work experience and education, are qualified to be registered with ASTT BC as designers. So if you would like to learn more about that, we're always happy to direct you to the right avenue to find out more. We are actually asking ASTT BC has agreed to do a presentation to our members about the registration process. And so I just thought I'd take a moment just to let you know, if you're thinking about it, they're looking at, in the next year to 2 years, their bylaws being put into place and finalized. So if you want to apply, I would recommend you do it as soon as possible, if that was already something that was on your mind. Okay, what is happening in the province? This is one of the questions we keep getting emails about, like what's happening with this, what's happening with that. The BC Building Code, the new code comes out, it's effective March 8th, 2024. There is some parts of the code that are being delayed till March 2025, like the new seismic provisions they're delaying that because it's way too complicated to train even the engineers about the new requirements in just a short period of time. So they've delayed some parts of the code to 2025, but in all intents purposes, it comes into effect March 8th, 2024. Now, the thing with the building code, like we mentioned, is the BOABC has their code course update that you can take, and it's very well done. I took that course, even though I was actually we were invited as an association to review the BOABC's presentations and audit them before they taught their own members. So that's how much we've been respected recently. So we actually, even though I got to review all the slides and knew what the changes were, I took the course as well. And I feel that it was worth taking it a second time because there is value to it. I think the most exciting change with the building code is for Part 9 buildings, the spatial separation calculations, when it comes to buildings that fit under table 9, 10, 15, if you have a sprinkler system in those buildings now, you get a bonus on your spatial separation calculations. That bonus only applied before to the buildings under table 9, 10, 14. So now that essentially what it does is if you sprinkler a building, you get to treat your limiting distance as twice as big as what it was. So if you're 1.5 meters from a property line and you have a sprinkler building, now under the building code, they consider that 3 meters from the property line. That's huge when you're doing your calculations, because it's a legitimate number to work with. And as we get into infill developments, it's going to make a big difference for us when it comes to whether you have to do sides of openings, when it comes to also the building materials that need to be used. Okay, so that's what's happening with the building code from that standpoint. The other exciting thing is if you have gone to online, you've noticed right now the BC building code is just this giant PDF file. It's really hard to work with, the new 2024 code. The government is actually working on making the BC building code online more user-friendly than the previous versions we had. So we were also, again, involved in the consultations on what we would like to see to make the online code more user-friendly. And so things like quick links that you can link if there's a reference to another section of the code, it'll take you there and then be able to backlink to where you were before, or save spots or make notes. So there's some exciting things coming up. The goal of the BC government right now is to be a leader in digital and online building code and building permit applications. They want to be setting the standard for the rest of North America in making those things accessible and user-friendly. So that's what's happening with the building code. New small-scale housing legislation. Again, a lot of questions. What's happening with this? So this, all of the municipalities have to have by June their new bylaws put in place to allow more housing. Already what you may have noticed is that if you have gone in for a rezoning development permit application to a municipality, there's no longer public hearings required. That's made my life easier. I have every second Monday night off now because I don't have to sit in council meetings trying to convince neighbors or the council why the neighbors are wrong, that these things shouldn't go in their neighborhood. And I've had so many developments go through, I forget sometimes they're even on a council meeting. I get an email the next day from the city and they say, oh yeah, it was approved. So that has been a huge change for us, just that one thing alone. But here's an outline of the other requirements or the new legislation, what it's going to do. I'm just going to go through them one point at a time. And actually, I'm going to jump to the last bullet point. Let's look at the last bullet point first. It says the standards for secondary suites apply everywhere in the province. Every property in the province is allowed to have a secondary suite. The requirements for 3 to 6 dwelling units only apply to municipalities with a population over 5,000 people. So if you're in a municipality with less than 5,000 people, some of these things we're going to review won't apply. But also where it has to be a population over 5,000 people, and also the lots have to be within what's considered an urban containment boundary. So they can't be rural properties, and are on municipal sewer. They can't be on a septic system, and they also cannot be heritage protected. So it's not a carte blanche, every property can be rezoned. There are some other factors to consider, but let's go back to point 1 here. The new legislation allows secondary suites within homes or ADUs, accessory dwelling units, garden suites, carriage homes. The local government gets to decide if they're going to allow suites, ADUs, or both. So the government has said every property has to have 2 dwellings allowed, but the local governments get to decide if that means secondary suite or ADU or either, right? Which is good, because in a lot of cases they weren't allowing secondary suites to start with. But this is what I've noticed in talking with municipalities across the province, is that there's a lot of the municipalities are actually grabbing onto this opportunity to be aggressive with their changes to their zoning bylaws. Not all, but a lot. And so they're kind of, these planners, and a lot of them are younger planners, they're pushing things more than probably would have taken 10 or 15 years to get through the mindset of people. They're taking advantage of that to push the boundaries. The second bullet point, a minimum of 3 dwelling units are allowed on lots up to 280 square meter in parcel area. Allow a minimum of 4 dwelling units on lots over 280 meters squared in parcel area. Allow a minimum of 6 dwelling units on lots. Now, this is the one where people say everything gets 6 units if it's close to bus. That's not quite true. I'll go through this with you. 6 units are allowed on a property if it's within 400 meters distance of what the government has determined to be called frequent transit. Frequent transit means that from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 10 to 6 on the weekends, there's a bus stopping at that bus stop every 15 minutes. So just because there's a bus stop within 400 meters doesn't mean you qualify for 6 units. That bus stop has to be a frequent stop. If that applies, you don't need to, they're not allowed to require any parking. So you can get 6 units on this lot, no parking requirements. And so the intent there is that people would have access to realistic bus routes. And again, we're seeing municipalities right now also discussing, the municipalities are also discussing their bus routes and whether they can increase to make them frequent transit routes. But I know in a lot of the municipalities that we deal with, you know, populations of like 20 to 30, 40,000 people, they only have maybe one bus route in the whole city that's a 15-minute frequent transit route. And the rest are like every 20 minutes or every hour. So they're not quite there, right? So that's what's happening with the new small scale housing legislation. Having said all of that, probably what we're going to see mostly is the 3 or 4 dwelling unit options. So we can do those without any problems. Okay. New standardized designs. This has been a big one for questions. How is this going to affect building designers when the government's coming out with a catalog of standard designs? Does that put us out of business? Again, we've been involved in the discussions about standardized designs from the very beginning. So we've been involved in some of these discussions for almost 2 years. The standardized designs, where it's at is, first of all, there was a committee formed to determine what needed to be considered with standardized designs in hiring a consultant to put together guidelines for different designers and architects to submit standardized designs. So that first process is done. Now a consulting company has been hired. It went out to tender, they picked the consulting company, and now they formed new committees, which we're also on, to determine what kind of standards will be required to put into this document. And then once that is completed, that document will be presented to any designer or architect within the province that wants to submit standard designs to be put into the provincial catalog. So you're not out, if this is the type of thing you're interested in, you may actually have an opportunity to put your plans into the standardized catalog. There are some things though with the standard plans, and coming from a long background in Stockholm plans as part of our business, Stockholm plans have a place, but they're not as universal as you would think they should be. So if, for example, you design a 4-unit townhouse to fit on a lot, you have to then start thinking, well, how much does that lot slope? If that lot, which is 200 feet or 100 feet long, from front to back can easily slope 3 feet, those standard plans don't quite fit because there's other requirements that come with the design and dealing with that lot slope on a lot that looks flat but isn't quite. If you design a 40-foot wide standard townhouse plan, and then it's designed for a 50-foot wide lot, what if the lot is 48 feet wide Or what if the lot is 60 feet wide and you want to get some extra width out of it? So the standard plans, there will be a place for them, but there is still going to be an ongoing place for you as designers to customize either those standard plans once they're paid for, or to do your own designs to fit on lots, because the developers ultimately want to maximize their profit. So if a standard plan makes sense, then it makes sense. Maybe in a small rural community where there isn't designers that are proficient with multifamily design, something like that would fit on a nice flat lot in the middle of town. But you get into the more urban settings where we're doing a lot of multiple family things, lots range in size from 30 feet wide to 120 feet wide. You're wanting to maximize what can be done on those properties. And also you have to consider the look of the building. So I think that there is a place for the standardized designs, but honestly, sitting on the committees, I don't think it's going to have the impact on our design community that a lot of designers are fearing right now when they hear that. It may actually enhance what you're doing because people will understand the need for a more customized approach. Regardless, I think it's exciting that the government is right now so aggressive in trying every option to create houses and homes. And I think that's why we may have a chance to see our number of units increased, because they're doing things like this. They're not asking people's opinion, they're putting out incentives to create homes, right? Okay, new digital permitting tool. This again, we're sitting on these committees. So the government is, some of you might be familiar with online digital application tools like Cloud Permit or other tools. The government is coming up with their own permitting tool where any municipality, regional district people will put their plans, all of their information in this. What has been required for submission has gone through a committee of people to review to make sure they're not asking for too much information, but that they're also asking for enough information, because some municipalities get carried away with asking for too much, right? So the government said, these are the things, after consulting with everyone, this is what we need. We will put this all into a program, put together a little package that will then go to the municipality. And when it gets to the municipality, then the municipality knows that all of these things are already here, and they can either ask for their one or two extra things that are needed for their municipality. But sorry, I was just reading some comments. They can add their little things, but basically what is submitted to them with this digital permit tool will be a more comprehensive, they know what they're getting, and the idea then is that it will help speed up the permitting process by making things more uniform. So as a designer, if you're working in multiple municipalities, you will have the same requirements, whether you're in Surrey or Delta, or whether you're in Kelowna or Prince George. The same requirements for permit will be across the province. Now, once you get to a certain municipality, like for example, if there's seismic requirements, or there's different changes in what the step code is, that's all built into whether the program is going to ask for that. But there might be certain bylaw requirements that also will be added. So the digital permitting tool, again, we're involved in all those discussions because we're starting to be respected as that type of a community that needs to have some input. So just in review of what we just discussed, what do we need to do? We need to continue to reach out to new members. If you know designers that aren't part of our association, reach out to them. We need to continue to establish our presence in the building design community. For those that are practicing building design and you don't know what to call yourself, you are building designers. That is the name of what you are. That is what you do. And it is the name that we are promoting because it makes us united when we talk to these different associations and groups. We advocate, we're going to continue to push for the freedoms for designers. We're going to try and push those number of units. We're going to push to try to get more of Part 9. So those are what we're doing. And that's not just for the registered ASTT designers. We're doing that for the non-registered designers alike. So we're a group. Partnerships, we're going to continue forming partnerships with other organizations and institutions that share common goals with us to work towards our mission. And also education. We're going to help our members through educational opportunities to raise the standards and to raise their understanding of what's happening in our profession so that you are not just finding out things after it's happened. We want our members to be at the cutting edge so that you are an authority when it comes to these different standards and changes that are happening. Okay, I want to take some time now to thank our sponsors. So SoftPlan from the beginning, SoftPlan Architectural Design Software has been a sponsor for us, and they have committed to be a continued sponsor to us. If you have a CAD program that you're already happy with, that's fine. But if you're looking for a CAD architectural design software, SoftPlan is great software. That's a software that we use in our company. It's got great modeling. It's got great materials list takeoffs. It's got, it's a really excellent program. And so if you haven't picked one, show support for them because they've supported us. A lot of these things that you're enjoying right now are because companies like SoftPlan have given us money that have allowed us to sponsor the Building Officials Association. For many of our members, you haven't had to this point pay any dues. These companies have helped carry the load to this point, and they've committed to continue carrying the load. S&S Insurance is a brand new sponsor for us. Sands Insurance, but it's S&S Insurance is their name. They do errors and omissions and liability insurance, and they have replaced our previous insurance company that we no longer are working with. Sands Insurance is based, or S&S Insurance is based out of the Lower Mainland. They are experts in architectural and engineering insurance. They also have told us that if we are interested, they would be willing to put together other programs for our members when it comes to insurance, group health benefits. They would be interested, for example, with our errors and omissions insurance, if 20 of our members end up getting insurance through them, they will be offering our members a 10% discount on all errors and omissions insurance. So there's, as we as a group move forward with them, they want to increase the services that they would make available to us. But for right now, we are encouraging you, if you need errors and omissions insurance renewed, hopefully everyone has it. But if you need it renewed, talk to S&S, get a price from them, and see if they can work with us. I'll just give you a really quick example on errors and omissions insurance. We had one of our designers in the province was listed in a group lawsuit for one of these subdivisions with multiple homes that they had done. And it's clearly that they're not guilty. It's clearly that what the lawsuit is over has nothing to do with them. But the amount of legal fees that they have put in just dealing with the discovery, it's insane. So insurance, when you have insurance, errors and omissions insurance, from the moment someone comes at you with a lawsuit, the insurance company covers that. So if you get mentioned, and lawsuits are becoming more and more common, if you call up your insurance company and say, listen, we've been named in this lawsuit, they send their lawyers, they deal with it. Whether you're guilty or not, the insurance covers it. So it's worth caring for your own protection, but also for the protection of your clients, because sometimes you may make a mistake, a legitimate one, that leads to costs of tens of thousands of dollars or more. And you know that your homeowner or your builder, if you're doing multifamily developments especially, and you're doing a townhouse where you have 4 or 5 individuals, families living in a townhouse, and you don't have errors and omissions insurance, and something happens and they put a group class action lawsuit together, you don't need the headache. So work the price into your quotes. If the insurance costs you whatever X amount a year, and you tell your developers, listen, we carry insurance, our price is a little bit higher now, we have to average it out over the jobs. They just have to accept it, right? You don't have to tell them, I guess, that you have insurance, but the point is that work it into your pricing. You need to protect yourself. You can't underbid and leave yourself open to the stress that I know this one designer that I've been talking to is dealing with is just not worth it. So the other, we have Northern Trust also has been a sponsor for us. If you're in the north, especially, you know, Northern Trust, they've been a good fellow for us in helping with our membership. And I want to mention about Mark's Work Warehouse, or Mark's, not Work Warehouse anymore, but Mark's. They have given our members a 10% client savings card. So for members, that's going to be available for March on the website. There's a link to download the card. You can carry it as a digital card in your wallet. We're going to put it in the BCABD app as a scan, and then basically that gives you 10% off anything you get at Mark's. That's a corporate loyalty program that they're doing for us. So now we're going to get into membership moving forward together. We discussed our different membership tiers that we had, and we decided to simplify things with the tiers. So we have got professional, starting at the left, we have professional tier membership. That's individuals who practice building design, architecture, or interior design in BC. If that's your profession, then you're a professional member of BCABD. You will be a voting member. So when it comes to the board of directors, you will have a vote in that. You'll have full access to all of our website and resources. There is an annual fee of $120 plus GST. Now, up until this point, you know, the last 4 years, we haven't charged fees. Some of our members have sponsored, but the bulk of the costs of the association have fallen on the shoulders of very few and our sponsors. And if we are moving forward as an association and we want to do the things we need to do, like continuing to sponsor BOABC, continuing to get involved in hiring quality speakers coming in to speak to our members, to give education, continuing to do even the administration of keeping the office running, and the cost of keeping the website and all of the different things going, phone lines, we need to charge dues. And we've kept the dues, we feel, to a reasonable cost for our members. What's the joke? It's the cost of a cup of coffee an hour. No, it's not. It's a cost of a cup of coffee a month, right? If you go to Starbucks, it's probably less than a cup of coffee now a month. But it will allow us to get things like insurance for our association, continue to sponsor these different events, and it will take the load off of the few that have been carrying it and doing a lot of the volunteer work for the last 4 years. So that's professional. Then there's professional affiliate. So a professional affiliate is someone that is in the industry working, like a builder, contractor, our suppliers, manufacturers, business owners. If you're an employee of a design firm, but not a designer, and want to be a professional affiliate member, that's where you would fit. These are also voting members, and they also have an annual fee of $120. It's the same as professional, but they're not practicing as a building designer or interior designer. Then we have our affiliate membership. Affiliate membership is free. It's a non-voting membership. It has limited access to the website, just to key things. And the purpose of it is to allow building officials, planners, educators, students, other people within our organizational, the organization of the construction industry, to be members and to be included with us so that we can work on the networking. It allows educators to get into the website and make sure we have the current programs available on our website. It allows building officials to see what we're doing so that we can get better communication with them. So that's affiliate. And then the free membership, the basic free membership will no longer exist. Basically, if someone wants to be a member but doesn't want to pay, we'll put them on the mailing list, our email list, but they will not receive any access to our resources, whereas up until this point, we did give some limited access. So we know that not all of our current 592 members are going to continue with the paid membership. We have offices, for example, right now where some of our members are working as administrators in the offices. They may not continue. I will say this, if you have an office where you have multiple designers, and you actually are a large enough office to have more than one person working in your office, consider having all of your designers and draftspersons registered and pay their membership, because it's a way for our bigger firms to help to offset some of the costs. Some of you as larger firms have been very generous in the past with individual sponsorship. So we've kept this price low enough that basically if you have 4 members or 5 members in your office, your annual fee for your whole office is still very realistic and affordable when we think of what it's getting. And then all of your members in your office can join in on the educational programs that we have. We would not want to see larger offices where one person is a member having group meetings when we have a webinar and have the whole office sitting in and benefiting from it, because that would be counterintuitive to what we're trying to achieve, which is get better education. So we're not desperate for money by any means, but the more resources we have financially, the more we can do as an association, and the more that we can do as an association, the more that you're going to benefit. So right now, none of our board of directors or any of our positions take a salary. Everything that is done in this association is volunteer, and yet we still find a way to have significant costs every month that we need to offset. So we would like to hire an accountant for the association. We would like to hire, we would like to cover our insurance. We would like to continue sponsoring the events. And we would like to hire some office workers so that our designers are not taking hours off their own projects to put into like sending out certificates to membership or doing things that could be done by an office administrator. So yeah, that's where we're at with the membership tiers and dues. Okay, the last thing on our agenda for today before we get into the question and answer period, and I have 2 minutes to do it and we'll be right on time. Our logo, for those that are paid members, professional members and professional affiliate members, if they wish, you can put our logo on your website. The only thing we ask is, first of all, that you are a paid member, and second, that the logo has a backlink to our homepage of the association. So you can put that on there. You can also put, and we're going to be in March, putting in our download resource section, a CAD block that you can put the CAD block onto your plan set as well, that you are a member of BCABD. The municipalities and the government in BC are recognizing BCABD designers. And so it adds that level of comfort for them, knowing that these are people that are interested in making their profession better. And so that will be available. We also discussed it as a board, and we will be issuing a digital certificate of membership that you can put in your office, or that you can have, and that will be renewed each year as you pay your annual due. So those are things that some have put the logo on their website, but we're officially saying, please do that. Put the backlink. Please put the block on your plan set, and let people know that you're serious as a designer. Okay. So in summary, we're certain that building designers will have a continued place in the construction community, and just construction community in British Columbia. 4 years ago, we weren't certain. I took this off our previous slide from our meeting a few years ago. It says we are relatively certain. That's how we felt a few years ago. We are certain now. By working together, building designers will have the best chance in charting their own future. And by supporting each other, we can look forward to a better situation for building designers and work for our success as a legitimate and essential profession. So 11 o'clock sharp. So I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we're going to go through some question and answer. I'm going to change the settings so that people can unmute themselves. I will ask you this. If you want to make a comment, just take a moment, and you should see a little thing for reaction where you can raise your hand. Put your hand up and we'll call on you. You can unmute yourself, But if you're not speaking, try to keep yourself muted. And then we can have the discussion, or we'll start by going through our meeting chat questions. And you're welcome to leave if you have to go somewhere, but I'm going to stay online as long as it takes to answer every question you have. So I'm going to click to allow participants to unmute themselves. I'm going to turn off the slideshow here so we can see each other. Okay. And I'm going to start looking at the questions in the chat right from the beginning and see what we didn't address as we went on. So, and again, if you have a question, put your hand up and I'll call on them as you see. So let's go down through our chat here. Can we design for, we did the architect review. Can the units be stacked up and down duplexes? Okay, so yes, we are allowed to stack units. You can do, that was one of the things the architects tried to take away, was our ability to stack units. We maintain that, so we're allowed to still stack units in buildings. If you stack units, though, remember that you're dealing with in the 9, 10, 14 section of fire protection, not 9, 10, 15. So 9, 10, 14, you're dealing with extra requirements when you stack a unit. That 9, 10, 14 does not cover secondary suites are exempt. So if you have a secondary suite that's stacked, then you're still under 9, 10, 15. But if it's units that are stacked, then you're under 9, 10, 14, and then you have to consider the construction of your sidewalls. You have to consider, there's more things to consider. Okay. Why was the ability to design more than 4 units removed from the final draft? I talked to the lawyer from AIBC, and he said it was the decision of the safety standards branch. At the end of the day, their decision was that they didn't want to change what designers were allowed to do. They felt that that could be done at a later time with more discussion. So they said in the end, we're going to leave it, and it was left. I don't know if that's the case or what discussions happened, whether it was them on their own or whether there was other groups involved, but we'll find out. As a building official, hey, Mark. Yes. Yeah, and that's one of the things, Mark, this is Mark Veer, he's the building inspector in Kamloops, good building inspector. The thing with our plans, what we're trying to do in raising the standards is be more consistent in what we're putting out as a group. So once we start getting our membership dues and we have a little more flexibility to start pursuing different things, we have our standard plan check that we're working on, which will be a plan check that our members can download. They can go through the items, and it's based on a collection of all of the different building officials across the province gave us their plan review check sheets. We're compiling it into what we think is realistic as a general checklist, and you can go through and check off to make sure you have those things covered on your plans. Then you will be able to, when this is implemented, put on your plan the logo BCABD plan check, and building officials will know that that plan went through that screening. Now you will have to do self-monitoring of that. And if a building official comes back to us and says, listen, you guys are saying they're doing the plan check, but they're not, we might have a discussion, but we just want that to be an honor system. But from Mark's point, we want to make sure the quality of what we're putting into the communities is consistent, and what they're asking for us then will be more consistent, and then we're all having a better time because we all know it's consistent. It's not like reinventing the wheel from one municipality to the next, right? Yes, so if you want to watch this video, for those that joined in late, we are going to be posting this through our YouTube channel, through our website. So you will be able to watch this again. I will not be watching it again. I will be drinking water, trying to get rid of my sore throat here. Okay, will we ever be able to act as a CRP on a project? John, that's a good question. So here's the thing with the CRP is if you read, and actually on our website, if you haven't seen it, there's a really good page dealing with letters of assurance for part-9 buildings. That would be another project that you could study for yourself to see when are letters of assurance actually required for Part 9 buildings, because they're being required when legally they shouldn't be. So there's only 4 times under the building code where an authority having jurisdiction should be asking for a letter of assurance. One is when an engineer is required because the structural design of the building is outside of Part 9. Now, it says within the guidelines that a municipality can determine that if it's only 1 or 2 or 3 elements, that they may not require a structural engineer to give a letter of assurance, a Schedule B. That's up to the discretion of the jurisdiction, and most jurisdictions don't ask for a Schedule B when it's the engineer's like doing a foundation wall for a building, for example. But that is one time, structural engineer required because it's outside of Part 9. The second time that it's required is when the geotech does his report and finds that the ground, the conditions of the soil are outside of the requirements of Part 9. So it doesn't mean they don't get a Schedule B if there's a geotech involved. They get a Schedule B if the geotech is involved and finds that the ground is not stable. If the geotech does his report and he finds the ground has 2,000 pounds PSF and there's no water table issues and there's no slope issues, the geotech was involved, but he doesn't have to give a Schedule B. Okay, but let's say now that a structural engineer is involved and a geotech is involved. What are the other 2 times that it's required? When the sprinkler system meets the requirements of NAFP 13. Okay, NAFP 13 is the sprinkler requirements for industrial buildings. NAFP 13R is for single family homes and duplexes. NAFP 13D is for multifamily projects and small commercial buildings. NAFP 13 is for big, you would never design an NAFP 13 required sprinkler system. So that's, again, this is all on our website. So the point is that a building official for the buildings that you're designing should never be requiring a Schedule B for a sprinkler system, because they aren't NAFP 13 unless you're in the city of Vancouver. The city of Vancouver in their building bylaw says if there's a NAFP 13D, NAFP 13R, just in the city of Vancouver, they want a schedule from those ones as well. The rest of the province, you're fine. And the last one is a schedule is required if the sprinkler system, the building requires a standpipe for water hookup for the fire department. You're never designing, how many of you ever designed a building that requires by code a standpipe? I would say that it'd be less than 1% of you in your history of working. So the point is there's really only 2 times when you would ever run into a requirement for a Schedule B, for structural engineer and for geotech, when the geotech finds it's outside of the realm of Part 9. If those 2 conditions are met, the guidelines say that the authority having jurisdiction doesn't need to ask for a Schedule A because the engineer, by his guidelines, is supposed to check with the geotech. The purpose of the Schedule A is to make sure these 2 guys are talking to each other. So the Schedule A isn't required. We're trying to get, and the Building Officials Association has been really good with this, and the architects are on board with this, and the engineers are on board with this because they don't want Part 9 buildings requiring a Schedule A. Because if the Part 9 buildings require Schedule A, we will have to become certified residential or certified registered professionals in the building code, and they don't want that. So if you're having a problem where your municipality is asking for Schedule A's on the buildings you're designing, call me. I would be happy because we have talked with some of the municipalities and reasoned with them, and they've got on board with understanding where the problem is. It's adding unnecessary costs. You can get your engineer in the case that you do have the engineer and geotech. If the city's stubborn on it, you can get your engineer to do the Schedule A, because all he's talking to is the geotech, and he has to talk to them anyways. He's not assuming any more liability. And if your engineer doesn't want to do it, get a different engineer. Like if this is an issue in your municipality, find an engineer that's willing to do that, because I know for me, I have 3 engineers that are willing to do both if it's required. But the thing is, since we've had these discussions, I haven't had a Schedule A asked for a few years. So understand where in the code, it's technically illegal for a municipality to require beyond what the code asks for. You are not allowed to go beyond the code requirements. So when a municipality is asking for something beyond the code, they're breaking the law. So that question about will we ever be able to act as CRPs? Not if we can get people following the Part 9 letters of assurance, what they're actually intended for. If they don't want to do that, then you know, we'll have some further discussions down the road. But I don't see you would have to run into a fairly difficult building official department to not be able to reason through it. And because most of them, once they see it in the code, will say, oh yeah, that's correct. So I haven't found a building department in the province that we've been involved with in discussing this that has not said, oh yeah. And that's why the Building Officials Association actually is eager to work with us. And I know the architects, when we've contacted them, they do not want Schedule A's going out. The engineers do not want Schedule B's going out. Like if someone asks for a Schedule B on a civil, what are they asking for? Civil isn't even one of the letters of assurance. So people think that a letter of assurance is a guarantee to the municipality that professional engineer or professional member is taking accountability. By them being involved in the project, they're taking professional accountability. They don't need to provide a letter of assurance saying. So some municipalities use it as a guarantee, like an insurance. If you want to ask for a letter from the engineer saying I'm involved, ask for a letter from the engineer, but don't misuse the schedules or the letters of insurance. That's all we're asking. Okay. Wayne, just want to thank, yeah, we have some really, really good building officials. If you look through our comments, we've got some good building officials that we've worked with through the province, and we've got to know, and that's why we sponsor their annual meeting, because we feel that this relationship is one that should be strengthened, and it will benefit both groups if we're working together. We're starting to share education with BOABC, like the building code update courses. If you take that course, you're taking the exact same course the building officials are taking. So you're not learning something different from, we thought about putting our own programs forward on the building code. But why? The building officials and us are on the exact same page if you take the building code update. So work with your building officials, get to know them. They are good people, right? And we're all after the same thing, which is trying to get houses and buildings built. Okay. Okay, so if you're a building official, this is a good question here. If you're a building official, but you're also drafting on the side, which many do, they'll work outside of their municipality and they'll be a building official here, but they're designing buildings in another place. If you're doing that, we ask you to become a professional member. Don't do the free membership as a building official, because you're going to be benefiting from things that are helping you professionally. So the same would go with if you're a city planner and you're doing planning in another area, and making money, like not municipal planning, but you're planning out townhouses and developments in another area. We ask you just to use, to pay the 120 a year, because it will benefit you and it helps us to do the things we're trying to achieve. So a good question here. What does ASTTBC qualifications look like to a designer with a foreign degree? ASTTBC you can get registration with them based on education, work experience, or a combination of education and work experience. The only non-negotiable education that's required at this time is the BC Building Code course, BLDG 1500. You have to take that course. That is a non-negotiable. But any other education you take, maybe you became an architect in another country and now you've moved to Canada and you can't qualify as an architect. Take the building code course, go to ASTTBC, and they'll tell you if once you're applying where you're short. They may say, we would like you to get some more letters of recommendation from other professionals. Can you get us a couple engineers that you've worked with so they can say that they may ask for more letters of reference. They may say to you, we would like you to do this or that, or get a little more experience. But apply with them and they will guide you. Actually, Peter Jorgensen, who is our vice president, he's actually on the credentials committee for ASTTBC. And so we have, the thing is, ASTTBC wants people to get registered, but they still have to meet a standard because they're a professional association under the Professional Governance Act. So they will help you do what you need to do. Okay, in regards to ADU zoning, may allowed to build them, but they still need to meet the BCBC. So all BCBC requirements would apply to the building. Oh, that's Mark. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, Theo, for the design in the rural, semi-rural areas, please be aware of the BC Agriculture. Yes. So the Agricultural Land Commission also kicks in to that role. We have talked with them and suggested that they change their requirement from 90 meters squared for a secondary building to a footprint of 90 meters squared, because it doesn't make sense to us why a single family home or a two-family, what's the difference? It's not taking up more farmland, but a 90 meter square footprint would allow a family to actually live in there. Okay, so we're going to hear from Mark. Mark again is our head building inspector in Kamloops. Speak, Mark.
Hey, Tony. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up again about the building code. So everybody seems to believe that, well, I can do that. Zoning says I can do that. So I'm going to put units there. Well, from a building code point of view, you can put 1 million units on a lot if you want, but they still got to comply to the code no matter how you're going to put them on there. So that's essential from a designer point of view. Like, developer could come to you and go, hey, I can put 8 units on this lot. And you're like, well, you could, but it's going to cost you a lot because of all these things that you're going to have to do to make it work to the code. And again, the code is the minimum standard that you need to build to. So I don't think that message is really being put out by the province. So here in Kamloops, we're trying to do our best to include that in the message, that just because zoning says you can do it doesn't mean that building is going to be as easy as you think, right?
Yeah.
It's going to include a lot of additional things by adding more units on the lot, and that comes into fire flows as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Mark. If you are just getting into the realm of multifamily, understand, like Mark's point about fire flows. There's calculations that are required by most municipalities to make sure that the water available in a neighborhood is sufficient to put out the fire in the building you're designing. It may be beneficial for you to have the engineer do the FUS or ISO calculations earlier on, definitely before you do the building design, but maybe even at the preliminary stages, to make sure that what you're designing the fire can actually be put out. Because what can happen is you get this whole thing designed, you get your FUS calculations, and then you realize the fire flow isn't quite enough for that building. And now you have to start separating the building with 2-hour separations. You got to start doing non-combustible siding and non-combustible construction on your sidewalls. Along with that, if you're someone asked about stacking units. If you have never done a design with a stacked multifamily unit before, read 9, 10, 14 and understand it thoroughly, because it will affect the way you design that building significantly. Okay, so Mark's got a good point. Just because the zoning allows it doesn't mean that the building code, you still have to make sure. So when you're designing, don't just come up with an artsy concept. Actually do, and that's where you might have to, I charge my clients a lot more front end on my development permit multifamily projects a lot more front end because we actually designed the building out to make sure what we're proposing actually can be built. Now, I've learned recently that, and this is where I mentioned about the FUS calculations, we're asking for our fire flow calculations way earlier than we used to, because there's nothing worse than drawing up the building permit sets for a building and then finding out you needed a 2-hour firewall and you got to spend another day and a half of your guys changing all your details to.
And based on these rules that are coming, I would say 90% of the neighborhoods where these are relevant are underserviced. That they've got 4-inch mains that aren't going to be able to support this. So this does, in I say 90% of the cases, it's going to be a problem. So it's going to fall on the designers. I taken the 2024 code change thing is ideal. Remember, we don't design the drawing. You guys are the designers and we review your design. That's our job. That's what we do, right? So submitting code deficient plans to us just lengthens the process, because now we're going to create a list and we're going to send it back and, oh, the city's fault. Well, actually it's your designer's fault because they didn't supply a plans that were correct, right? Oh, they want too much. Well, we're the minimum amount, like Tony's trying to say. So we are trying to work with everybody, but there are minimum information that we need to be able to issue the permit, right? So I don't know if there's too many municipalities are asking for a lot more than they're required to or what they can. But there are some out there for sure. But I think everybody's still in the process of we're here to get the permits out because all the councils are like, it's affordability and housing crisis. We must get everything out. So we're all about getting these permits out as fast as we can. So.
Yeah, no, and this is the advantage of giving building officials the free membership with our association, is we get them involved in these types of meetings, and it gives us a different perspective, which is what we want. We have to approach moving forward as a team. We can't be looking at each other as adversaries. So let's find something that's consistent. And as we create more team approach, and as we're working together, then provincially, what we're seeing is that you can go work in one municipality and the requirements are essentially the same in the next. And those building officials can expect the same level of quality coming in from anyone that is a member of our association. That's what we want to achieve, is a higher standard. So when building officials see BCABD on the plans, they know with confidence that these guys are following some sort of status standards. Okay, let's move on to Bill's question here. If I design a duplex, for example, that the province accepts in their catalog, do I still hold copyright? Yes, the intent is that they will pay royalties. So you'll design your plan that will go into the standard catalog. Now I'll say this though, and this is still being worked out, but these plans have to be standardized for the whole province. So you have to have designed for zone 7, zone 7A, zone 8, zone 9. You got to have it designed for seismic here. You got to have it designed for snow load there. It's going to be interesting to see how many designers actually want to go ahead and do all the work on the hope that these things sell. I don't know what the commission is going to be. These are all things that we're still working out. And these are things I brought up with in this, is that because I'm in the stock plan industry heavily. We sell plans all over the US and Canada. And I know that from state to state, province to province, the requirements are all over the place. And so you can't standardize plans. They always have to be reviewed by a local designer or architect, because the requirements are way off. Hurricane, earthquake, fire, tornado. So how can you do that in British Columbia, which is the size of half of like the whole northern corner of the United States? Our environment and our elements are all over the place. I think it's a good idea, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So yes, but you would get a royalty. You would get a royalty on every one. And that answers the question about seismic. these are all things that are going to be put into this document that will be presented to anyone who's interested. Will get a document of these are the requirements for your standard plans. But the intent is that anyone in the province could take those plans and the building officials would that sign on. Not every municipality is going to sign on to this. So if the municipality signs on, they will agree that they will accept those plans and give permits basically immediately. If a municipality doesn't want to sign on, that's their choice. And there's probably a lot of municipalities where they aren't going to want to sign on to this program because it means that they lose that control of what is being approved, right? But we'll see how it plays out. It's still, I would say that's still a good year and a half away from seeing anything tangible coming out. Okay, I'm just scrolling down here. Did I answer the question on standard plans? I think that's enough, eh? Yeah, I think I've covered most of it. A lot of discussion on standard plans there. Speaking of pricing, are there any plans to update the improve the schedule of recommended fees? If you have been working with, this is one of the reasons why we put forward a percentage for recommended fees as opposed to a dollar rate or an hour rate, because percentage of construction cost is always consistent with what's happening in the building industry. As construction costs go up, it means there's more pressure in the industry, and so you're under more pressure. You're working longer hours. As construction costs come down, it means generally that you're not putting yourself under as much stress. So we strongly recommend you try to work out something within your company for percentage of construction cost. If you have feedback though on our suggested fee schedule, we want the feedback. So send me an email or send an email to info@bcabd.org, and we may put together, if it comes that we need to, another committee of designers to discuss our standard fee suggestions. But for now, we don't have any plans to change that because there's too many other things that are higher priority at the moment. Nice summary, Kristen. Kristen did a nice summary here, some key takeaways. And she put a link. So if anyone wants to take a summary, that's good.
Hey, Tony, I think Kristen was the AI summary companion that comes with Zoom.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I
Well,
don't know if
nice.
Kristen is actually a real person.
No, I'm
Kristen?
a real person.
Yeah, Kristen's a real person.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. We do have
But
an
I do
AI
use-
summary feature, and I wasn't sure.
I use an AI summary feature. So that is me and my AI summary. So yeah,
Okay.
combo.
Okay, I was gonna say
Thank you.
if Kristen isn't, she's got Kirsten, the computer has the exact name as Kirsten Sun, one of our members. So okay. We can get a can we get a lawyer who is familiar with the Architectural Act so that we can get paid for quick questions? You don't have to pay for quick questions. If you contact the PGA and you say, who can I ask about the Architects Act and its interpretation, you know what they say? Call BCABD.
Okay.
So you just send an email into us and we can answer it immediately.
Yeah, so I'm just going to speak up here,
Go ahead.
I feel like then you're taking liability. Like it would be cool, since we have all these great sponsors. So I've actually reached out to the insurance person you've suggested, because I do have errors and omissions, but I don't feel they really understand what I do. So I'm always not completely sure that they get me. But it would be cool to have a lawyer who may or may not be a sponsor, who we can basically, so you're not having to do it. We can just pay them some sort of small fee. And then if we do have an issue, we have a lawyer who's familiar with the Architect Act. It'd just be cool to have.
So if we did that, I know the architectural firm we would use. It's the same architectural firm that wrote the BC Building Act. And actually it's the same architectural firm that ASTT BC has hired in their negotiations with the architects. But I will say this, anything from a lawyer is, I just had a copyright thing with some developers in the province that were using my plans without permission, and I don't know, they spent like 2 hours on it. It was like an $8,000 bill.
Oh,
It was
wow.
insane. So if you need a lawyer, we could maybe recommend them, but I think for the most part, they've written the architect legislation regulation very simple to understand. And if the members would like, we could do a presentation, a point by point, and go through it, because when you see it and you have it explained, it's pretty evident what it means. But at some point, if we get enough members and enough money, then we may bring put a lawyer on retainer. That's not a bad idea, Christian. There's a lot of thanks to me, but yeah, the board. I think Brad's commented thanks to the board, because it's not me, and there's actually other members of our association that volunteer. So I speak, and you often get emails back from me, but there's other people that are involved. And so like to all of our board members and all of those that have volunteered time, we appreciate what you've done in helping us. And if you would like to volunteer, send me an email, because there may be something that we can have you help us with. Even something as simple as putting the certificates together for the 100 or 200 or 300 members. Or having someone in your office that would be willing to do that. Those are all things that are being done by our volunteer members right now. Okay. When fees come to effect, will invoices be sent out to current members? That's a good question, Jim. So what we have set up is our bank account. We've set up our member system so that you can pay by credit card through a program called Stripe, and that will be deposited directly into our association bank account. Now, what will happen is on March the 1st, all of your memberships are going to be switched over from their current membership type, either prior or on, to the new membership that is going to, on March 1st, require you to pay $120. If you choose not to go ahead, we're going to do that for everyone, depending on their association. The building officials will get moved into the new affiliate program, which won't require anything. But for those that should be paying, you'll be put in there. And then on March the 1st, midnight of February 29th, you'll get an email in your thing that says your membership is expired. And then you can choose at that time whether or not you want to continue. We hope you do, because again, a lot of our discussions we're having with the government are helped by the fact that we have currently 592 members. I don't think we're going to have 592 members after March 1st, but we're hoping to have at least a few hundred members so that we can do some of these things. Like the Building Officials Association meeting on its own, by the time we pay for the handouts for the building officials and pay for the sponsorship and pay for our trade table, it's about $5,000, that one event. And then we have a bunch of other expenses with just day-to-day maintenance of website and phone lines and things like that. So what percentage of the people in the province are designing buildings do we think are members of this association? I think we have about a third. I think we estimate there's 1,500 building designers in the province. So we have a lot of reaching out to do, but I think we've attracted the majority of the quality building designers. I think the building designers we have attracted are people that have demonstrated they're interested in improving their standards and being part of making the industry better. I think the ones that haven't joined are either maybe heading towards retirement or are not really serious about improving or changing. So 3D is single family duplex, and 13R is for units. Yeah, you could be right. You could be right on that there. I've got so many things in my head right now. I'd have to just check our website again, but there's a really nice, this is talking about the NAFS requirements for sprinkler systems. You can look on our website and it breaks down those different, what each of those is for. if we have a mechanical, electrical, and sprinkler, et cetera, on a project, is a CRP required? Mechanical, Part 9 buildings do not require mechanical engineer. Part 9 buildings do not require, under the building code, an electrical engineer. So if you choose to bring a mechanical engineer on, if you choose to bring an electrical engineer on, you're going beyond the requirements of the building code, which you can do, but the building code doesn't require it. So they don't require a schedule from them because they're not required for Part 9 buildings. Part 9 buildings are meant to be designed without the need for an engineer or an architect. That's the whole concept of a Part 9 building. It's only when you step out of Part 9 that you need those things. So there's within the Part 9, it explains how to design the mechanical system and all the requirements for it without the need for mechanical or electrical engineer. So if you ever get asked for that, just again, go to our website. The reference is there in the code. The 4 times that a Schedule B, a letter of assurance, is required. Just get really familiar with those 4 times. And if the building official is asking for it beyond that, say, okay, so where does it say that in the code that I need to provide that? If that makes sense, Joe. And that's where the consultants, so 2 consultants are on the project. Again, we go back to the 4 times. There's 4 times that they can ask for it. Really, realistically, the majority of you will only face the 2 times because you're not dealing with heavy duty sprinkler systems or standpipes. So there's only 2 times. And the guide to Part 9 buildings for letters of assurance says that the authority having jurisdiction can waive the requirement when it's a geotech and an engineer, because the engineer by their own requirements is required. He has to talk to the geotech. Like, he's not allowed to not talk to him. So what's the point of having a, we're hoping that this will be something actually that we can do a joint presentation with some groups on that. The architects actually did a really good presentation with the engineers 3 years ago at the Building Officials Association meeting, and they tried to stress these same points, but it seemed it wasn't like a super popular course, or like, because they have the different breakout rooms you can go to for education. It didn't seem like it was a really interesting course for people. There was more interesting ones in other rooms. So it was like, I went to the meeting because I wanted to see what they were going to say, and they said the exact same thing. And there was, I don't know, 30 people in there. So it hit maybe 30 building officials in the province. Guide to letters of assurance, great resource. Yeah, all of those are on the resource page in our website under letters of assurance. We tried to compile everything into but we'll maybe do a presentation again on this coming up and see if the BOABC would like to present with us. Errors and emissions insurance, some good comments there about that. Yes, please consider heavily getting errors and emissions insurance, even if it means you have to raise your price on your projects across the year. Protect yourself. Don't take the risk, because people are suing over nothing. It's not worth the heartache. It's not worth the tens of thousands of dollars and the stress that is caused to prove that you're innocent, because you will be innocent 99% of the time, but you won't get your money back. Even the time, even if you don't hire a lawyer and you try to do all the stuff by yourself, the time you miss from your own work. I mean, you know how much you make an hour. It's you'll spend months and months trying to prove your innocence if you get mentioned. And the way that these lawyers are doing it with these class action lawsuits, especially if you're involved in multiple building projects, is they blast everyone. Every single person that was involved, the landscaper, the builder, the architect, the engineer, the designer, the interior designer, the guy that pressure washed the house at the end. Every company is mentioned and is forced to prove that they're innocent. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Okay, we're going on to standardized designs. I think we covered the standardized designs. Discussion about the fee schedules. If you have thoughts on the fee schedule, please send comments to us. because if we get enough comments in, then we'll maybe set up a committee and you may end up being on the committee to discuss new recommendations.
Tony, sorry, I was asking some questions on the fees just because
Oh,
we always get the pushback that, oh, well, your building permit fee is so high. So we're trying to get
your
some,
fees.
trying to get some comparisons. Like
Oh, I see.
in Kamloops, we're 0.62% of construction value is
Oh,
the
right.
permit fee. And they're like, oh, it's too much. How can you raise the fees? So I'm just curious on what the other fees that they're paying, and what's designers, are they 5%, 2%, 1%? Like what's the average
Oh, right.
cost?
Yeah. So I think, well, what we've recommended for our members is, and it depends on really who they're working for, but our fee schedules range, if it's something simple, like, or if you're doing, well, let's say it ranges between 1.5% and 2.5% of construction cost, depending on what you're doing. Now, designers might add or take away services from that within those parameters, but that typically is what they're paying, about 1.5% to 2%. The architects, right, fee schedule, I know because I just looked at it 2 days ago for the government on something. Their 5.5% is their lowest fee, 5% of construction costs, and their highest fee is 12.7%. That's for single family duplex up to small townhouse developments.
And then
So
they're always complaining, our fees are so high. Well, we're literally the cheapest part of your whole build. So
yeah.
go away.
Yeah, well, it's I think that some municipalities have even floated the idea of paying of having well, that's another discussion altogether. But Mark, if anyone wants to comment to Mark, do you want to put your email in the chat, and anyone can send if they know what people are paying for fees? I think you already know what I'm paying for fees in Penticton, and the South Okanagan is probably very similar to what you're, but
Sure.
Okay, and I'm going to open it up to questions because I've gone through, I think, everything. If you feel like yours was missed, you can bring it up. I don't even know how many people are still with us here. Quite a few. 82. So anyone have any other questions? We appreciate you all very much and your support in coming today. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Hopefully we can see things get stronger for our association and our membership. Mallory, I'm going to call on you here.
Yeah, Tony, I was just wondering, you delineated explained the different memberships. Is there still sponsorship opportunities with the association?
Yeah, for sure. So Mallory's with Northern Trust, so they've been one of our sponsors in the past. So if you want to continue that for this next year coming up, yeah, just send me an email, and we do have that under the sponsorship section.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And for any of you, if you know industry partners like suppliers that you think would be a good sponsor for us, then send them our way. Sponsorship ranges between $500 and $1,500 a year, somewhere in there. So it's not a huge commitment for people, but it does give them an opportunity to be part of what we're doing. Hopefully, if we get enough membership, hopefully we can do one of these annual meetings in person coming up, and we can do our own trade show and get people to sponsor us. But until that time comes, if you're at the BOABC convention, stop by and see myself or Joe Rommel, who will be working the trade desk this year. And if you have any questions, we're always available. Kirsten?
Yeah, so I just had something that I think, especially with young designers starting out and just talking about standards. And I love everything you're talking about with consistency. And I think there's a way to probably also have an additional level of membership where we can start sharing best practices with like really strong building details. So is there something where we would be able to share CAD details, and then we're drawing our wall assemblies properly? Like, I think there's a lot of young designers who are missing that, and a lot of people sort of pushing themselves, like sort of navigating in the dark. And I imagine that you get a lot of people registering
Yeah.
If we could get them, you know, like by an energy modeler who would be a member, who get sponsored, but then also be able to sell the details. I think that would also ensure better building as well if we had great details.
Yeah, that's a good question, Kristen. Actually, we do have on our website, on our resources, a cab download section where
Oh,
we do have some details. For example, there's a rate on gas detail in there. There's some other, and the intention is to populate that with approved and peer-reviewed
sure.
wall
But you should
sections
charge
and
for it.
details.
You should
Well,
charge for it.
yeah, well, we're hoping that if realistically, if we have 200 or 300 members, we have enough money within our association at the fees we're charging and the sponsorship we have to provide the services our members need. If we think of ourselves as a team and we're all working to the success of each other, which is how I've tried to view my role in it, is I've shared a lot of my personal company and knowledge for free with everyone, because I'm trying to think of this as we are a team, and my success is your success and your success is my success. So as we work together as a community, and we're sharing those types of details, and we set up programs where here's my wall section I use, let's do a peer review of it. Okay, these members think we should add this detail, this building official feels this is missing, here's a BCABD approved standard wall detail for this application.
Sure.
So I agree with what you're saying, Chris, and we need those details. I think that there's a way that we can do it without having to charge more if we have the membership here. And
Actually, I love that idea. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then it can build a really good library that way. So that's awesome.
because if we're doing the quality of work that is recognized by our peers, the building officials, the government, the engineers, if we're putting out consistently as a group the quality of the work that's respected, that's when we can go to the government and say, why are we limited to these goofy requirements of the architect's regulation? And then we have those other partners who are willing to say, like Small Housing BC, yes, these guys should be doing more than what this antiquated requirement is allowing. So then we're all benefiting each other, right? We're all making our job less stressful, and we're sharing the knowledge amongst each other. So I like that, Kristen, what you're saying, because it's what we want to achieve. Because like you can have the attitude that guy's my competition and I'm going to undercut him and all this other stuff. Work with the other designers in your community, get to know them. When you're too busy, send them work. When they're too busy, they'll send you work. Go for coffee with them once in a while, because you may find that working together and when you're on the same page, you actually things improve for you significantly, right?
Yeah, no, we all work better when we share. And yeah, we're in Vancouver, we're pretty lucky that we do have there's a lot of camaraderie, certainly amongst certain designers. So yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you guys are a good example, I think. And you've been a good support for our association. So Mark, I see your hand's been up for a while, and then we'll come to Rod.
Sure. Yeah, I just got one last comment, then I got to run to another thing. With the continued push for AI and everything, the standardization of everything, I think is going to be pretty high on the list. I'm still not entirely sure how they think AI is going to do code checks on plans that aren't standardized. Like each one of you does something a little different. Yeah. I did structural drafting for 15 years before this job, so I understand drafting pretty well. And everybody does things a little differently. How AI is going to understand everything when you draw something here and this person draws something here and they look different, I don't know, but I can see that being a big push to standardize how drawings look so that the AI can do its job. I don't know. So standardize is good, but it's going to be a battle for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle. And I think you start simply with the plan check, I think is really what we want to start with, and making sure, have you checked off? Because these are the things we all agree the building officials are looking for. We think it's necessary. These are the things that we've had municipalities ask us that don't have plan checks, the smaller communities, because they're too small. When you're done, can you give us yours? Because we'd like to use it. So wouldn't it be nice if the Building Official Association and BCABD and other groups that want went in together and came up with a province-wide plan check? Why don't we have things like that? I was talking to the Planning Institute of BC the other day. Why is one municipality height definition completely different than the other? I mean, floor area ratios, parcel coverage, like everyone has their own definition. So we're actually working with the Planning Institute of BC, the University of Vancouver Island, and ourselves in discussing coming up with standardized, example standard definition set for zoning bylaws for those definitions. Why isn't there something like that? It's not rocket science, but it just takes time and it takes volunteers. So I think that's the way to go. Rod, you had a comment?
I just found the unmute button here. Hi, great presentation. Just a couple quick comments. Are you guys hearing me?
Yep.
Okay, my voice is kind of raspy today. First of all, I'm really on board with it. What we were just talking about standardized plan sets and arrangements, as well as standardized details, construction details. I've done a lot of work in my business over the years to have my drawings consistent one after the other coming out, and to have well, someone was mentioned earlier about checklists or like the plan checklists that are consistent across municipalities, and have my own internal checklists. I also wanted to mention something I'm really passionate about, and I talk to my clients a lot about this, is the quality of designs themselves, because a built structure is there for a while, and if something isn't done well, isn't thought out well, if it's not put together efficiently for use of space, for practicality, it is a burden on the owner and on the next owner, on the next owner. And I have a lot of clients that I've dealt with over the years who actually have had to take up the burden of fixing a problem. One specifically, that a stock home was built on a lot about 20 years ago, and it was a really bad orientation. So you drive in and you see a blank wall. That's where the bedrooms are, and you don't know where the entry is. You don't know where to approach the building. So what I'm really interested to know is, with the BCABD, is will there be a focus on this sort of area, like the quality of design, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Rod, that's a good point. I think moving forward, there's a lot of ways our association could go, and definitely one of the things I've kicked around for the last 4 years in my own head was, why don't we have an association design competition where it's peer judged designs in the different categories of either single family home or duplex or multifamily home or commercial. Why are we not doing things like that from the design standpoint? But you're talking more of a practical design standpoint. I think just education.
Yeah,
I think having maybe what I would like to see with this extra, if we do get the money in that we're hoping for, is to be able to hire some of our members to actually put together presentations and speak to the group and share their knowledge. Like, we have some members that have been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years. We should be tapping into their experience before they're retired and
absolutely
don't want to think about it anymore. So can we bring them in as guest speakers to do like a workshop where we have a panel of them to field questions from the group on different matters? So I think, Rod, that's a good point. At the end of the day, a good designer is going to stand above the rest because of the practicality and the artistic abilities that they have in their designs. And so that sometimes there is just some designers that are poor designers, and they're probably not part of our association. And that's just going to be a consistent thing. But I think for our group, we've got a group of people here that's serious about improving their trade.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
That's an excellent way of putting it. And I think that having that additional emphasis on what we do, can really elevate the importance of having seeing a building designer with this kind of association, with this kind of standards.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Rod. And it's about charging enough money that you can spend the time.
Absolutely.
And that's where talking to the other designers in your area and finding out what they're charging, because we don't need to be undercutting each other. We are professionals with a serious set of skills that not everyone could do, or else everyone would be doing it.
I
And
give mad props to you and John Gower for helping me not just bring my rates up, but charge like front load my fees. Somebody else was talking about how do you deal with not getting or trying to get paid for work you've done. And I said, and this was in the chat, I said, you get paid before you do the work.
yeah,
Like you pay your mechanic before you drive the car away.
yeah, that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. Initially my developers balked, and I lost, I think, 20% of my regular developers because we charge the progress payments ahead of doing the work. I'm always prepaid for what I'm going to do. I never do work
yeah.
without getting paid ahead of time.
I hear you there on the developers balking. I had a builder who was quite put back when I increased my rates, but when he had a project that was pretty complex, I was the only one he wanted to bring the work to because I was charging enough and I was showing that I was worth what I was charging.
Yes, that's it. And all of those developers that left me when I started doing that came back to me because they appreciated what we were doing. And I'll tell you this, if this is a true fact, if you put up your rates, if you know your rates are low but are afraid, put your rates up 20%. You will lose 20% of your customers, but you will be making the same amount of money and doing 20% less work. The next year, put your rates up again another 20% to where you need to be at, or whatever you were deficient at. You'll lose another 20%, but you'll still be making the same amount of money. Don't be afraid to put your rates up. You might have a week where you're like, was it the right thing to do? You might have a builder that complains. You have to charge what you need to charge to do the job properly.
When I put my rates up, I realized very intuitively that I had the time to put in what I really wanted to do on the project.
Exactly.
And it gave me a lot of ease about tackling the project. It was kind of rough because when I first put my rates up, I found myself prioritizing the project. I was charging more for it, and I had to balance that out and get other work done. But it changes your mentality about the work you're doing. Seriously.
Yeah, totally, Rod. And I'm glad you brought that up. And it's maybe something we need to discuss at another meeting, is how to go about putting your rates up. Because I know there are some of our designers that are not charging enough for their talent. The skill set that you have, especially if you've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, the knowledge that you have in your head is so valuable. It's so valuable.
I did a series of pie charts on my website to just visualize what I put into a project, and it blew me away when I put it all down.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's so if you ever want to have the discussion, I'm always available. John, we'll go to you. You have a comment?
Hey, Tony, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just first thing, thanks so much for taking the time to do all of this. It's fantastic and really appreciate it. It was just that question. I think I emailed you a couple of months back there on the 4 units in a building, and because I was approached about a fee simple row home project and the potential that they could be allowed to suite the basements in a 4-plex, which would then end up being an 8-plex. I'm just wondering, how far off do you think we are in, I suppose, getting an answer on that one?
Well, I'll tell you how the process went. We were waiting for ASTTBC to decide if they were going to stake the claim on more units. But they're still a year or two off from getting their bylaws finished. And so after discussions with them, it was both felt that we should move ahead. So we just approached the government recently and requested a meeting with the different ministries involved, and we'll see where it goes. So it's something that has the potential to happen relatively quickly, but I would be surprised if it's if anything happened by fall. What you can do if your builder wants to have you design the 4-unit townhouse, as long as you're very clear with them that you cannot design the suites, they could build it to meet the requirements of a secondary suite, which it's a simple fire separation. And then after it's built, they could try to find an architect after it's built that would come in and sign off on the suites. But this is one of the examples I'm going to talk to the government about. I sent them a big section of context and examples where we're running into this problem over and over again. Units being turned down because
I think it's just more important for things to go on with the densification on things and that, you know, and it's you know, come June when a lot of this has to be in bylaws for municipalities and stuff like that, you know, I just this is something that's going to be the other one, just off topic as well, just a stratified version of a row home project. Like I was told a while back there that, you know, because it was stratified, even though it met the 4 units in a block and less and that kind of stuff, is still, they said because it was stratified, they'd need letters of assurance and they'd need this an architect involved. Or is that true? It's stratified.
No, stratification makes no difference. So if the building itself has 4 units, what you can't do is you can't separate the building with a 2-hour firewall. So you can't have a 4-unit building, 2-hour firewall, and another one right beside. But if you had 2 parcels, you could get a 0 lot line clearance and build 1 2-hour party wall on one lot and 1 2-hour on the other, and have the 0 clearance, because it's would be considered 2 separate buildings. But
no, I just with that first one with the 4 units and that, I just had an ASTTB practice review there. It was a random thing in early in the week, and it just came up in the conversation. But I just got the impression that they're not really following it, or they're not going to chase it.
No, they're not. They're not, because they're the problem. The good thing about ASTTBC is the government recognizes them. The challenge for them is they have so many disciplines that are under ASTTBC. They have, I think it's 10,000 members, something like that. And so they can't just consider our needs.
I think because we're a small portion of their membership, I think that's what it is.
So if more people were registered, if they had 200 registrants, they might look at it differently, but I think they only have 80 registrants that are building designers. So.
Yeah, that's correct. They were saying, the guy said that in the practice review, he was saying it. So but I definitely think the way you're going with it is I think it's a good time to be doing this, because the pressure is there at a provincial level as well. So
if we don't get it now, we probably will never get it.
No, never get it. Yeah, I agree. Listen, thanks so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, John. And then we'll have John Leach.
Well, thanks, Tony. A couple of quick comments. First off, to congratulate you and your team. This has been an extraordinary meeting. The work you've done, looking at your website and the communications you and I have had, you've done an awesome job. And I hope that the vast majority of the 590 or so building designers see the importance of joining, paying the fee, and being recognized as a professional. Technology Professionals BC, as I mentioned in the chat, there is a new organization. I'll only take a minute, I promise, Tony.
No, please do.
It's not a time for me to pitch it. During my time as CEO with ASTTBC, I hope many of you will recognize that ASTT had always been a strong advocate for practice rights for building designers. And one of the things that we'll be working on as a professional organization advocating for technology professionals is the right for building designers to assume responsibility and be recognized as professionals within their competencies. So that's a discussion that, Tony, I'm sure you and I will have. I'm hoping that TPBC board will consider this as a priority and join you very, very soon in advocating for those rights to practice. So I wish you well, as always, a great group of important designers in the province of British Columbia, and I anticipate lots of good stuff ahead.
The future holds, we'll find out. All I know is I'm very thankful to be associated with the group that we have, and if there's anything that we can do to support each other, whether that's us supporting you, or if you can do some volunteer work for us, even if you feel that you don't have the experience, maybe you have the time, whatever it is, I think that the more we work together, the more we're going to benefit each other. So anyways, thanks again. John, I'll let you and Joe talk privately if you want to continue the discussion, because I'm going to try my hardest to stay out of that one. And may you guys have a great day. And this will be posted on the YouTube channel in the next week or two. And any members that missed it, or if you want to watch parts of it again, you can. I will just put this expression that BCABD does not take responsibility for anything that came out of my mouth today. So if I misspoke in any way, just call me. I do make mistakes, and not everything that comes out of my mouth is infallible. So it is everyone's responsibility to do their own research and to check their own codes and requirements at the end of the day. But I've done my best. So have a great day, everyone. And I'm going to end the meeting, and we will talk to you all soon.